Oh boy, you know who's here? He's going to react to this and much more. Your favorite, my favorite lawyer, Article 3 Project founder, Mike Davis. Mike, thank you so much for being on the program, and Happy New Year. Happy Epstein Island, folks. So it's always great to have you. What do you make, let's talk about the legal stuff first, of the filing by Team Trump to hold Jack Smith in contempt? Did he violate the judges, the pause in proceedings?
Yeah, I mean, he did. And it's very clear that when you are filing a motion to dismiss under presidential immunity or any other government immunity, as you know, Kimberly, the cases are stayed, right, until that issue is
Yeah,
resolved. And Jack Smith is trying to rush this
he
trial.
didn't
It
wait.
just shows that Jack Smith is trying to interfere in the election. The Biden Justice Department waited 30 months to bring these charges. And then there are 4 different indictments in different jurisdictions, and they stack these trials back to back to back to interfere with the presidential election. There's no rush. If they can
Right.
wait 30 months to bring these charges, why are they rushing to try President Trump before November 5th,
Answer that
2024,
question.
other than election interference?
Yeah, that's it. That's the sole focus. But the problem is they see that it's not working. And the more things they file against him and try to sideline him, it's actually backfiring. He's going up in the polls. It's counterproductive. They didn't think it was counterintuitive before, but now they're realizing that it's problematic and that it's actually just fueling him even more to a mythical proportion. But also, so Jack Smith has seen several setbacks, okay, as we've discussed in this DC case. What do you think is going through the minds of these prosecutors at this exact moment in time?
I think they're thinking, oh crap, I didn't realize that we have this presidential immunity issue that's going to gum up this January 6th case in DC, and we're not going to be able to ram through this case and get a criminal conviction from a DC jury that's 95% Trump deranged. Actually, it's probably more than that.
More than
It's
that, yeah.
probably 99% Trump deranged, because even the Republicans in DC are Trump deranged. You have this Biden prosecutor, Jack Smith, who is a laughingstock. He has been unanimously rejected by the Supreme Court twice now. Once with former Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell, when Jack Smith got a criminal conviction of McDonnell, a likely presidential or vice presidential contender in 2016. Jack Smith was unanimously reversed by the Supreme Court. That is hard to do. It is very hard to get a criminal conviction reversed by the Supreme Court. It's nearly impossible for that to happen unanimously. Jack Smith found the way. Jack Smith also tried to skip the D.C. Circuit, the intermediary appellate court, and go straight to the Supreme Court to get this presidential immunity issue rushed through so Jack Smith can try Trump before the election. Again, Jack Smith was unanimously rejected by the Supreme Court. He is a partisan clown. He is a Democrat Scud missile sent in to take out Republican presidential contenders, and he gets rebuffed by the Supreme Court. This Obama judge, this DC Obama judge, Tanya Chutkan,
Terrible.
she is a rubber stamp for this Biden special counsel, Jack Smith. She's been reversed already by the D.C. Circuit, by Democrat judges on the D.C. Circuit, because of her illegal gag order that she placed on Trump.
Well, it seems so coordinated, the whole thing. It's just like a concerted effort, coordinated effort to try to engage in election interference, to try to sideline, to try to suppress voter enthusiasm, donor enthusiasm for President Trump. But, I just worry about what they're going to do next, because this isn't working. But I want you to lay out the timeline here for a moment. When is it realistic, a time that a trial could start, although there shouldn't be one at all, obviously acknowledging that. How do you see this playing out? Because there's a lot of things on the legal docket, in multiple states.
Yeah, I mean, they want to have 4 different criminal trials of President Trump in 2024 before the presidential election. They wanted this January 6th case to start in March of this year. They wanted the Mar-a-Lago case to start in May of this year. They wanted the Alvin Bragg case in Manhattan, the criminal case, to also start in March of this year. this is not going to work. You can't have a criminal defendant in 4 different courtrooms at the same time. And this Jack Smith case, for the January 6th case, it's not going to get done quickly. It's going to take months and months and months. And that's what the Biden Justice Department, that's what President Biden and his Justice Department, including Jack Smith, want to happen. They want President Trump in a courtroom instead of on the campaign trail.
That's right.
But guess what? These 2 impeachments for nonsense, these 4 indictments for non-crimes, these 2 illegal gag orders, this civil fraud lawsuit to bankrupt Trump for non-fraud, this is all backfiring. They realize the American people are onto their lawfare, onto their election interference. And so now they're just trying to throw the Hail Mary. They just want to take President Trump off the ballot altogether. Right. So the American people don't have a choice.
Well, so in just a quick segue for 2 seconds here, just to kind of keep up on the New York civil fraud, where there is no fraud case. I know they're in recess now, but both sides are supposed to be preparing and producing briefs. And then January 11th, I believe, is the date scheduled for closing arguments, in that case. And there's a tremendous amount of money at stake here. Again, for people who just paid off their mortgages and didn't have any late notes, didn't do anything. They just borrowed money, provided paperwork. It was, verified by those independent, banks. A loan was given, a loan was paid off. Business as usual in the country, except if your last name is Trump. Where do you see this case going before we turn to Colorado and Maine?
I mean, there's no question that this biased, whack job Democrat judge, Arthur Engoron, is going to rule against Trump. And this is going to have to get reversed on appeal. It may have to go all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States because these New York courts are rotten to the core. They've been overtaken by partisan activists in robes like this Arthur Engoron, and there's no chance that Trump's going to get a fair trial there. Remember, this judge just decreed before the trial even started, before any witnesses,
that there was
before
fraud.
Any other evidence, that Trump committed fraud, right? How the hell is there fraud? You have a businessman paying back sophisticated Wall Street banks on time, in full, as agreed, with interest. Who was defrauded? This is insane.
Well, no one was. That's the problem. Just the American people, because of the election interference that they're trying to engage in. So I want to turn to, because it's on a lot of people's minds, Colorado and then Maine, where we have blatant election interference once again. How quickly do you expect the Supreme Court to take up that ruling?
The Supreme Court should take up these cases very quickly, because even though these 4 whack job Democrat activists on the Colorado Supreme Court decreed that Trump somehow can't be on the ballot because of an insurrection, somehow it's an insurrection for unarmed people to go into a nation's capital, walk through velvet robes, follow police direction, take selfies, and they don't burn down the damn place. And somehow that's an insurrection. But these 4 Democrat activists on the Colorado Supreme Court said that there was an insurrection somehow. And then you also have this unelected, non-lawyer Secretary of State in Maine, this Shenna Bellows, who is a total whack job, just decreed that there was an insurrection in Trump. These are very dangerous precedents these Democrats are setting in these blue states, and the Supreme Court needs to nip this in the bud immediately before these Democrat activists start doing this in swing states and just have President Trump, who has the support of the American people, lose by default to Biden because Democrat activists have just destroyed the Constitution, misread the Constitution to take Trump off the ballot.
Okay, so Mike, lay out the jurisprudence surrounding this clause, in the 14th Amendment relating to insurrection. There's a lot of questions about this. Again, Trump's never been convicted of insurrection, but there's this whole interplay about the 14th Amendment. What do Americans need to know?
So there are, after the Civil War, the United States enacted the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, the post-Civil War amendments, to outlaw slavery, to guarantee due process and equal protection to the freed slaves, and to guarantee voting rights to the freed male slaves. And what was happening is these Confederate sympathizers were winning elected office after the Civil War, and they were undermining the post-Civil War Reconstruction effort. They were undermining the Union. And so what they did is added Section 3 to the 14th Amendment that says that if you engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the United States, you can be disqualified from ever holding office again. Now, there was a case over 155 years ago in front of then Chief Justice Salmon Chase. And the case was how you go about enforcing Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to disqualify. And what Chief Justice Chase held is in order to enforce Section 3, Congress has to pass a federal criminal statute for insurrection or rebellion, which Congress did. It's still in the books. There's an updated version on the books right now. You have to have a federal prosecutor charge that federal criminal statute for insurrection or rebellion. Grand jury has to indict. A federal jury has to find them guilty with evidence beyond a reasonable doubt unanimously. The district court judge, the federal judge, has to convict, and that conviction has to be upheld on appeal. That is the only way you can disqualify under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. You don't have 4 partisan whack job judges on a state Supreme Court like here in Colorado, or some whack job, unelected, non-lawyer Secretary of State like Shenna Bellows in Maine just decree that an insurrection occurred somehow. Somehow Trump incited that insurrection, and then therefore he's just taken off the ballot. That's not how democracy works. These people who pretend like they are saving democracy are destroying it.
It's so, ass backward, to use a very technical legal term. But isn't this all just, quite frankly, another example of Democrats, smoke and mirrors, right? I mean, we have more Epstein documents yesterday appearing to implicate Bill Clinton, but there's no effort to prosecute actual crimes. It's always just come up with another fake Trump conspiracy theory.
Yeah, it seems like every time the Bidens or the Clintons or some other sleazebag Democrat gets into trouble, there's a new indictment against President Trump. I mean, I don't know what the hell they're going to blame on President Trump now. They've already indicted him 4 times. They brought civil fraud for non-fraud. They've impeached him twice for stuff that Biden did, right? I mean, it's just insane. Biden takes $10 million from Burisma. President Trump says to look into it, and Trump gets impeached for it. I mean, it's just insane what the Democrats
That's one of the more
doing.
absurd examples, to be quite frank. Like, when you see that example, it's like, wait a second, what is going on here? Like, he says, look into something that's an actual crime that Hunter did. They impeach him for it on a perfect phone call. And, what's happening to Hunter? He shows up and gives some Banana Republic, news conference, doesn't go in for testimony or questioning. And it's just nothing to see here. And then they smuggle him into the White House so he can't be available for anything else. And they, sneak him in. It's just so kooky.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens with this. What are your predictions now for these cases?
So I think that the Supreme Court is going to take this presidential immunity case. I think the Supreme Court. So here's the deal: if you're a government official, you have immunity from civil or criminal prosecutions for what you do within your official capacity. They've held that for members of Congress through the speech or debate clause of the Constitution. Judges have judicial immunity. Presidents have civil immunity, but they've never decided whether presidents have criminal immunity for their official acts, because we've never had a president indicted until the Democrats brought this unprecedented lawfare against Trump, and they've indicted him 4 times now. There's no question that if a president has civil immunity for his official actions, he would have criminal immunity. I think the Supreme Court's going to find that he has criminal immunity. They're going to remand this back down to the district court for her to make her factual findings. And that's going to delay this case beyond the presidential election. President Trump's going to win, and then his attorney general is going to make these bogus federal cases go away as they should.
Go away, like disappear, abracadabra. All right, Article 3 project founder Mike Davis, thank you. Where can everyone go